The nasturtiums are blooming like crazy right now in my backyard, and I thought it would be the perfect opportunity for us to paint them. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to paint a loose style nasturtium flowers, and it's going to be really fun. So grab your watercolor paints and let's get started. Okay, you guys, today we are going to be painting the nasturtium flower. I picked one of them so you could see it up close, but as you can see, there's yellow inside and then some dark areas right here. We're gonna be painting in a loose style today, so it'll be a quicker way of painting the flowers and also just a little more abstract. The first thing we need to do is mix up our paints. I'm gonna be working with a size 6 brush today because my canvas is pretty small. This is a 7x10, but feel free to work with whatever paintbrush suits the size of your watercolor paper better. Make sure you're using watercolor paper since we're gonna be using lots of water today. And if you are not working on a watercolor block, make sure that you tape down your paper. So nasturtiums come in a variety of colors, but my favorite are, I think it's called the Fiesta blend, deep red and deep yellows and oranges. So those are the colors that we're gonna wake up on our palette today. I get this question a lot. I do not clean my palette. The only time I clean my palette is if I have a very specific color that I need to mix up. But for the most part, I get my best colors from all the colors on here. This is I believe this is tangerine orange. I want an orange that's nice and bright. We are going to be using orange and red for our flowers today. We're gonna need yellow as well. This color I have right here is Indian yellow, kind of more of a golden turmeric color. And you just wanna wake up all your colors so it's nice and quick because we're gonna be painting in a loose style. And whenever you hear loose style, it typically means wet on wet technique for watercolor. We want to make sure that we have all our paint ready to go. And then I have yellow lemon deep over here, but it's had green in it a lot, so it's a little bit messy. I am a messy painter. I'm just a messy person in general. Okay. We have most of our colors ready to go. And if you guys have never painted with me before, I use 2 water cups, one for warmer tones and one for cool tones. It really ensures that my colors stay bright and vibrant and don't get all muddy. The last color we're gonna mix up is green. Nasturtiums have these really bright green leaves. So I'm taking sap green and I'm gonna put in a little bit of like half yellow to make it really that yellow bright green. Okay. All right, so we have that bright green color and we can start painting. This brush that I'm using has a really good tip on it, and you do want something with a good tip. Really, you want a pointed tip because you're going to be able to get better lines. I'm going to grab the red and add a little water to it. And I want to start off with this left leaf. So I'm pointing my brush and then I'm pressing down so it kind of fans out. I'm going to put this down. And then I'm just going to come around like this to the point right here, grab some more water and kind of just blend it around. Oops. And I am so sorry if you hear that in the background. It's my dog. She's licking I have like a peanut butter treat for her, so hopefully she's almost done. Otherwise I'm gonna have to re-record this. And now I'm just gonna go around and make all of these leaves. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of orange in it because I wanna give it a little bit of variation. And again, everything is in that center part. Oh my goodness. I am making such a mess. Some days are just like that. Okay, go back to grabbing my color, my red with a little orange. And again, I'm just going into that center area, pointing and then pulling and pressing down and just having it come back here. And as you can see, our petals they're like a teardrop shape, right? They come into the center, but they're wider over here. And same thing on this side. I'm gonna point and pull, and then make it pull all the way back. And they have 5 leaves. So again, pointing, pulling down, and kind of just painting, but making sure there's still that point right there. And one more time. Your brush should never be dripping with paint. That means you have too much on your brush, and I just recommend a little dab to get rid of that. Okay, so we have our beautiful flower, and the middle is really yellow. I'm gonna grab some of that deep yellow and a little bit of lemon yellow. And I want the paint to be pretty thick. And I'm just going to lightly tap in here. And when I do that, because this is still wet, it's going to bleed. And we really like that look because this is our wet on wet technique. And I forgot to tell you guys to mix up a little brown, but grab a brown. I'm using burnt sienna. It's kind of reddish, with a little bit of a darker brown. And I'm just going to lightly, with the tip of my brush, draw these little lines, just like the lines that are here, and fill those in. Beautiful. So that's our first one, and I would like to do maybe a little bud over here. And I don't know why they remind me of dinosaurs, kind of. They have this thing right here that comes out, so we're gonna paint that. But we're gonna keep it green because before this starts to bloom, this area is the same color as the stem, which is a greenish yellow. I'm just gonna draw that, or paint, sorry, that line. And then kind of come into a little triangle here. And this is a loose style, so we don't have to worry too much. I'm gonna paint just a little stem coming down and we can connect it later. Then grabbing that red and just lightly tapping it. It's gonna bleed a little bit, that's okay. Okay, perfect. I wanna paint another flower right here. Maybe we'll turn it a little bit to the side, and then we can come in and add some leaves. I'm going to make this one more orange in color. And you want your paint to be the texture of like coconut oil or butter. And again, I'm going to point and pull. And when I pull, I'm pressing down so that my brush gets wider. And then I just come back to that center area. So everything's gonna flow around the center, except this time, I'm gonna make one of the petals be kind of up like this. So it looks like it's kind of just starting to open. So that elongated U shape. Going back and getting a little more yellow on my brush. And same thing. Just pointing to that center area. Awesome. Make sure it's all coming into the center, and then we'll do one more. Maybe add a little yellow coming out here. And we can always pull in more if we feel like we need to. And we want to have that really dark yellow area. It's okay if it bleeds. And then again with the brown, just having it like this. Perfect. Okay, we'll do some more flowers, but first I want to make sure that we start to get some leaves in here. The nasturtiums have these really beautiful, almost lily pad-like leaves, grab that green color that we mixed up that had the yellow in it. And we're literally going to, this first one, just be a big circle. Make sure you have enough water on your brush. And it's okay if it touches this orange, because we like that loose style. So we have this big leaf and it's front facing. Grab a green that's just slightly more saturated and just lightly poke it in, maybe on this edge. It might look weird right now, but when it dries, it's gonna look really pretty. And then we want to just draw some stems. So this flower probably would have a stem coming down this way and through, and then the leaf would have a stem. We can also make a stem coming up here, and we can do another leaf. For this leaf, let's kind of make it on a side angle, so really long oval shape. And then another area where maybe the leaf is. It's a lot smaller because it just started to grow. And if you want, you can poke in a little extra yellow. Usually though, when your leaves are yellowing, it means they're getting overwatered. I overwater my plants a lot, so that's something I've been taught to look out for. Okay, and then let's put a couple more leaves over here. Nasturtiums have a lot of leaves. And if you guys are looking for a plant that's easy to grow, I'm in Southern California, so they grow super easy here, like super low maintenance, and I just love them. And then maybe we'll do just another long one, kind of side view. That was kind of funky the way I did that. Okay. And lights. Beautiful. Now let's do another flower. I think maybe like another red one back here would look really good. Pointing our brush, then pressing down and kind of swirling it around. It's that teardrop shape, and then just coming in and painting. And I don't like it to be perfectly round. We're just gonna pretend like that's part of the flower, because the petals are never perfectly round. I like to give it a little variation. This one I'm gonna do open, just like this one up here. And everything comes together in the middle. I'm gonna add a little more orange. You can also do it like that, like what I just did. You can just paint coming down if you don't like twirling your brush like that. I really emphasize finding a way that you like to paint. Don't feel like you have to paint a certain way because a certain artist does. I like to give techniques, but at the end of the day, it's your creative journey and you should figure out what works for you. Grabbing that yellow and then just lightly tapping it in here. We want it to bleed because it looks cool like that. And then grabbing our brown for those little marks. And just make sure you don't have you want your paint to be pretty saturated when you put in these brown marks. And you're just using the tip of your brush to make them. They're like little lines. Awesome. And maybe let's do another bud down here and we'll make it orange this time. So it has that, it reminds me, I can't remember what that dinosaur is called, but it reminds me of a dinosaur. So it has that long stem coming out here. And then just make a little line for its actual stem. I don't know what you would call this part. And then grab an orange and just make basically like a little beak coming out. And maybe add a little yellow to it if you want. And it should come to a point. And let's put in some more leaves. Grabbing that green, yellow, really saturated. I'm just coming in and making a circle here. My husband finally wants me to teach him, or he wants to do watercolor together, and I'm so excited because I've been wanting him to for so long. And he bought this Harry Potter book, and I'm nervous because the book looks so complicated, but we both love Harry Potter, so we thought it would be really fun. And I'm having to gear myself up. Like, okay, I don't want him to be turned off of watercolor because it's difficult. I grabbed a darker shade and I'm just gonna poke it in. And we're gonna have some bleeding here and it's gonna turn a little bit brown because of the red. That's okay. I want this one to be a little bit darker. And since this is wet, this is really just gonna bleed well. But anyways, so it'll be fun to teach him, and hopefully he doesn't, hopefully that book isn't too complicated. I'm gonna do a side leaf over here. This one's a little bit darker. And maybe a bigger leaf back here. I get a question a lot, how do you figure out the composition of a piece? And it's just trial and error. You really have to play with it for a long time. Yes, you can get into a flow state, but it just takes time. I struggled with I still struggle. I mean, even right now I'm thinking, oh, I should have like tilted it slightly this way. It's just normal. It's a normal part of exploring watercolor, and you'll learn it and it'll get better over time, but it's not going to get better until you practice. And that's just the cold, hard truth about it. Okay, we have our lovely leaves, and I feel like we need something over here. Nasturtiums have a lot of long stems because they're a viney plant that crawls and climbs. And I want to put some stems down here. You want it to make sense. You don't want to just put a random one that doesn't look like it goes anywhere, but you don't have to think about it too much. And then alternating your colors will give it more interest. So as you can see, this stem is a lot more yellow than this one. So I highly recommend doing that. And I'm just gonna put some kind of random stems in here. And maybe I'll attach a little a little leaf up here. Now, one thing I want us to do is nasturtium leaves have white lines in them, the veins of the leaves, and that you could leave it like this if you want to, but I think adding those white lines adds in another depth, which can make your painting look even better. But before we do that, we have to make sure that these leaves are completely dry. So we're gonna let them dry and just add in a little more texture here and there, maybe a couple more leaves. I think some small leaves always look really nice because when they're growing, they have these teeny tiny leaves. But we also don't want to overdo it. That is another thing that you learn with time with watercolor. Maybe like just some stems out here would look nice. Okay. We're gonna let this dry, and then we're going to come back and do those white stems. We're back. These leaves have dried. If you want, like I said, you don't have to do this, but if you want to add just a little more detail to the leaves, we're gonna paint the veins. I recommend grabbing a really small brush. This is a 3/0. This is the Pigeon Letters liner brush, and I love it. It's really great for small details. And I am working with, this is technically gouache, Bleed Proof White by Dr. Peach Martins, but you can also use, if you have a gel pen, a white gel pen, or you could even use white acrylic paint. Don't feel like you have to use watercolor because we're using watercolor, but white gouache works really well as well. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little circle in the middle, basically a dot, and then kind of wavy lines coming out from that. Not too wavy, but you don't want them stick straight because this is a leaf and it's gonna have a little more flow to it. And you're just going to do that on all the leaves. And this one, since it's a side view, make sure you account for that. So the dot's gonna be a little higher up, and then these lines on the bottom are gonna be longer, the lines on the top are gonna be shorter. I really encourage you guys to actually look at pictures, photos, or in real life of this plant. It'll help you get it to be a little more realistic. I also think it's really good if you want to paint more florals or more plants to really get familiar with how plants grow and the general anatomy of a plant. Is that the correct term, anatomy? I guess it would be. Okay, coming over to this one. Since this leaf is a little bigger, the circle will be bigger. And I really like how we have these bleeds right here. I typically paint in a really layered, detailed style, but I enjoy doing this style every once in a while, and I don't believe that you have to be one style. I don't like fitting in a box like that, so for you too, you don't have to fit inside a box. If you want to do layered work, awesome. If you want to do some loose work like this every once in a while, that's cool too. All right. I really like this paint, this bleed proof white, but I will say it is not waterproof. So I know a lot of stationers, myself included, until I learned my lesson, use it for envelopes, for calligraphy, and I do not recommend it for that. All right, our last little veins here. And then I'm gonna show you one extra thing if you wanna get real extra. So this looks really good, but if you wanted to, there's always a possibility to add more and more detail. I'm going to grab a green that is slightly darker. Not like crazy dark, but slightly darker. And make sure it's pretty saturated. You don't want paint dripping off of your brush. And you can come in and draw just a tiny little line next to the white, and it gives it just even more depth. I wouldn't do it on all of them, just some of them. And not even like tracing the whole line, just a little bit. If you want. I think that I'm pretty happy with the way that this looks. And, you know, this was a loose style, so we wanted to do something that took a little less time. All right, so we're done with our painting. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to paint more realistic nasturtiums, I also have another YouTube tutorial that focuses on painting realistic ones. And it's a really good tutorial, so I highly recommend that one if that is something. I'll make sure I link it in the information section of this tutorial. But you can go there if you want that. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you painted along with me, will you please share on social media and tag me at Lavender and C? I love seeing what you guys create, and I hope you have a wonderful day.